sat in the hospital room with my little man in the ICU and my wife, and it was just us three, and I was like, literally, like, what am I doing? Although this is a way of life and this is how we live, being a coach is a lifestyle and all of that, and you know that. It was the first time in my life that I, like, stopped. Either I gotta change or I gotta get out.
When you think about the next few years here at South Florida, what are the one or two things that still need to happen to get to where you want this place to be?
I think...
Next up. Before we get to the podcast, I gotta tell you guys about our new sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is my favorite way to get action on sports. And I've tried all the different apps, daily fantasy, sports betting. Prize Picks is the very best. On Prize Picks, you pick players instead of teams. So if you know how players are gonna perform, you can make tons of money on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, each player has a set stat projection, and you pick more or less on that number. So for example, Steph Curry, more or less than 20 points. So if you think he's gonna have more, you pick more. If you think he's gonna have less, you pick less. And when you're right, it hits. So you pair that with a few other players, you can make up to 100x your money. And the best part is I have a 100% deposit match up to $100 for all of you with code ADAMB or the link in the description. So if you put in $100 on Prize Picks, they will match that $100 for you. So then you get $200 to play with. So use code ADAMB for that 100% deposit match up to $100. Link in the description. And guys, supporting our sponsors helps me a ton, allows me to put the show on, travel around the country. So it would mean a lot to me if you'd support Prize Picks by clicking that link, using code ADAMB when you download the app and get that free $100 deposit match. Let's go talk to Coach. We've completely hijacked your office.
That's what it looks like. We're good. And I was like, where's all my shit?
You'll be looking for everything in the office.
It's all good. It's all good. We needed it.
You got it mic'd up?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Have you been to a bunch of spots so far?
First stop this off season actually.
Here.
It's right here. Yeah, we're doing. I'm gonna hit a bunch of schools, but I was in Orlando at the, OT7, the overtime, 7-on-7. So I was there calling. They're on NFL Network now.
Yeah,
so I was calling those calling high school 7-on-7 games. It's not the easiest task in the world, but I was doing that in Orlando. Then we just drove right here. So.
Have you been to Tampa before?
First time in Tampa.
Really, ever?
Yeah, ever in my life. Yeah, my brother lived here. My brother was a quarterback at Colgate.
Yep.
So he trained for a little bit and trained in Tampa. So he told me all about it. So we went. Where did we go, Ben? Sunday night, what was it called?
American Social.
American Social, yeah. Right on the water.
Yeah, American Social is cool. The place right next to it, Jackson's, is really good. American Social is like just decent bar food.
Yeah.
But what a cool.
Good scenery, yeah.
Oh my God, it's incredible, right?
Yeah.
That was my very first night. Second night, no, probably would have been, it was the first weekend here. We did OVs and the young lady that was running it for the previous staff, just kind of let her roll with it so we can see it.
Yeah.
And we went down there. I'm like, okay, like you can sell this.
Yeah, we can recruit here. Yeah. I was going to ask you, what do you do with OVs in Tampa? Like, there's so much to do. How do you decide? Like, do you keep them on campus? Do you let them go explore?
Yeah. So we've like gone a million different ways with it, and we've So we've been here for 18 months now.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of OVs because of the transfer portal the way it is now. Like you end up doing. Yeah. So we've kind of tried a little bit of everything and have kind of narrowed it down. We keep them. So where you were at American Social, right across the water is the Marriott right there.
Yeah.
There's a Marriott and then there's a JW behind it. Got it. So we keep them at the Marriott. Mm-hmm. So you inevitably always end up down there.
Yeah.
And then we kind of hit. We hit Hyde Park usually, which is an area just southwest of there. It would remind you of like, I'm trying to compare it to like in Orlando, very similar, like Winter Park. You live down there, don't you, Seagrass?
South Tampa?
Yeah. But like that Hyde Park area,
Yeah. Hyde Park
like if you got money, like that's where you live.
That's where it is, yeah.
If you don't want a yard or like have kids, but it's awesome. So we take them there. We'll eat somewhere down by where they stay, and then if a little bit further east of where American Social is the cruise terminal. And next to the cruise terminal, there's essentially like these. They use them for like dinner cruises, but there's these 3 different size ships. So we do breakfast on one of those and literally go out and go around Harbor Island, and you kind of go around the entire bottom part of the city. Yeah. So we do that down there. Up here, we obviously show on campus, spend time here, and then we'll throw in every now and again, we'll go to a Top Golf. We do our photo shoots at the stadium, and the stadium kind of sits between downtown and here. And so they get to see the stadium. So you kind of keep them between downtown, stadium, and like there's a million really good spots to eat. And we've kind of narrowed it down.
I mean, you can't beat this. You can't beat it.
Not especially when you've lived in Ames, Iowa, and Champaign, Illinois. Knoxville is cool in its own unique ways, like different, but same, like in the sense of you got the river, like it's different, but it's like that's a really good college town, where it's not too big, but it's not too small. Like you can get people in and out of the airport. Like it's a different kind of pretty. This is like whoa, you know. And every now and again you get a kid who's never been to the beach, and we'll go out to Clearwater and show them like. In the middle of the day, there's some R&R time. Like we'll take them out there. It's different. Like it's different than Arizona State. Arizona State, like just as much to do, but kind of different much to do, you know. So I was just out there last week.
Oh yeah, in Scottsdale.
Yeah, and I text Kenny. I'm like, if you jack this job up, you're an idiot.
He's the best. It's funny. Well, cool. Let's get started. I appreciate you having us. I'm excited to be here because one, following you for a while in your career and all your success at Tennessee, and it's been fun to kind of see you climb the ranks in coaching and now be here. Two, I feel like you have so much excitement around this place right now. I mean, I can always tell when I start posting where I'm going. You know, some places you don't hear from any of the fans. I mean, my social media, I'm getting DMs from fans, sending me questions they want me to ask you. Like, everyone's fired up. But I think part of it, obviously, you could take them to a bowl game last year. Great first season as head coach. Also, the new stadium getting built. But let's start with that first year. The first year as a head coach for you. What's the biggest lesson you learned during year one?
I think probably the biggest thing I've learned is just literally attack every single day and don't worry about a whole lot else. Obviously, you think ahead and you're constantly trying to plan, but handle today. Like, and everybody always says, man, be where your feet are, but every day is a little bit different, right? Like I learned really quickly, it's just a series of problems or things to do, and how you handle every single one matters. I think it hit me really quickly that as a head coach, like literally every single thing is watched, critiqued, thought about, whether it's your players, your staff. Every single thing you do matters. And so not necessarily ever being calculated, because I feel like that's what makes me who I am, is it's not necessarily calculated, but it's certainly thought through. And so just take every single day and attack it, work as hard as you feasibly can, and don't worry about a whole lot else other than what's going on today.
Was there something when you first took this job that surprised you right away? Or maybe, you know, again, first time head coach. So is there anything you're like, man, you have your coach's manual and you're ready for a lot, but you're like, I was not ready for that part of it?
Yeah, I think probably as you sit down and kind of prepare for that, and I hadn't thought about taking a job until literally we got done with that season. The last time I had thought about it was the summer before me and my wife were on vacation, and I took time to actually think through it, plan through it with the thought that it may be coming. And so as you get here and you're like, all right, like you have a feeling like you know what you're inheriting, you know what you're walking into, and what you don't know is like what's behind every single door yet, you know. And so I think probably how fast it all happened with finishing a season, getting here, getting started, like you don't come up for air. I don't know if I came up for air until after the bowl game, you know, like which was like virtually 13 months in, to where I don't know that I wasn't necessarily prepared as much as I don't know that I knew immediately to pull back every layer, because the layers kind of got peeled as it came. But it was a lot. I felt prepared, it was just a matter of truly knowing what was, whether it's behind the door or underneath the layers. You start figuring out how many people do different things, and you need everybody to be completely in sync for it to ever work. And it's the process of getting everybody in sync that I think took a little bit longer than I'd wanted.
Yeah. What that process when you get hired in the whirlwind, you're talking about like not coming up for air for 13 months. What's that first month or two like when you become a head coach and you just left the great season at Tennessee and now you got to hire staff, you got to deal with the portal, you got to recruit your own roster, right? You're trying to figure out, you probably got guys calling you telling you they're going to the portal, even know who they are. What's that process like?
Yeah, unique here too, because the job had been open for about a month.
Yeah.
You know, they had made a change week 9 of the season, and so the guys had the opportunity already without even knowing who was coming in to say, man, like I'm out.
I'm out, yeah.
And so really, for the most part, I sat and talked to guys that were already in the portal.
Yeah.
And so as you were doing player interviews, you were like, portal, you're not in the portal. All right, let me figure this out here. You know what? Like I mentioned, I took a week the summer before, and literally me and my wife went on vacation and sat on a beach, just us two, for a week. And I actually sat down and worked through staffing, worked through geographically, man, we're here, this is what the staff would be. And I made like literally a depth chart, like a 4 deep at every position. So
for coaches,
for support staff, for even young coaches. And it helped me in a lot of ways because I was coming from a place where we had 2 years to build a support staff, and there was some young coaches there, support staff people there that were ready for elevated roles, which made it easy with some hires. There was that week in the summer where I worked through literally what the first day would be, what the second day would be, what the third day would be. And when I tell you I did that for the first 6 months, I literally wrote it all out. And because I knew once I got back, we landed back from vacation, like literally was right back to Tennessee, and that's all that mattered. Yeah. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that I never once thought about another job, never once took a phone call until we played at Vanderbilt that night. We got done, and I get a text from my agent, says, "You ready?" I'm like, "Jiminy Christmas, can I just enjoy this 2-hour bus ride home before any of this craziness?" But that's the truth. So when I got here, literally went to day 1 and started. And so I felt like the plan, and obviously you got people walking in the door where you're like, I'm going to deviate off this plan. But I felt like as a coordinator, that's what helped me be successful, was every minute of every day was planned out. We referred that to process in terms of how we operate, that the cleaner the process is, the more it's refined over and over again, the better I can then reflect back and say, man, like I jacked this up, or this was right, or this was wrong. And it was the same. So I felt like I stuck to a plan and deviated a little bit. Honestly, in a lot of ways, like calling a game when things are kind of...
Yeah, you got to adjust.
You got to adjust a little bit, but I was sticking to the plan no matter what. And so it helped me from getting here, player meetings, to working through the staffing in between those player meetings, to getting coaches in. And I was fortunate that I had some incredible support staff that came immediately, that was able to hit it running. Yeah. So as I'm meeting with players, we're looking at the recruiting board as I get out of players. I got a list of phone calls I got to go make, and obviously some sleepless nights, but I felt like we were able to, one, salvage the roster in terms of guys that we wanted to keep, that were going to be willing to stay. We were able to save enough pieces to go and be able to lay a foundation in year 1, because I thought if you go in and you just completely destroy it, which was easy to do, they'd won 4 games in 3 years, to say, man, we're just going to scrap it, start from scratch. I thought it was going to put us years behind, where I thought if we could have a foundation of young guys that that would stay, give me the opportunity to show them what we were doing. I thought that would give us the best chance to lay a foundation to then be able to keep building.
What was that moment like when you got the final call that you were getting the job here at South Florida? You remember the moment?
Yeah, so it wasn't a call.
Real quick before we get back to the pod, I got to tell you about our newest sponsor, Chubbies. Summer is right around the corner, and our friends at Chubbies are bringing the good vibrations. See what I did there? Chubbies is a lifestyle apparel brand that makes every moment feel like vacation. I've always heard that fashion is an expression of one's character, so why not let the world know you're down for a good time? Chubbies offers a variety of high-quality men's apparel, from super stretchy shorts and swim trunks in 3 different lengths to pants, polos, and button-down shirts for when you got to hit your favorite weekend brunch spot. Embrace the spirit of endless summer with Chubbies, the ultimate destination for bold, vibrant, and outrageously comfortable clothing. Chubbies sent me some great stuff that I've been wearing. First, this shirt. I mean, you stand out when you wear this thing. Great material. And the best part, for a limited time, Chubbies is giving our listeners 20% off your order with an exclusive code NEXTUP at chubbiesshorts.com. That's code NEXTUP at chubbiesshorts.com for 20% off your order. That link's in the description as well. But guys, you supporting our sponsors allows me to do this podcast, helps me a ton. So please go support Chubbies by placing an order at chubbiesshorts.com. Code NEXTUP for 20% off.
We were in my living room in Knoxville, and had a couple people from here, and I said, well, let me take a night, think through it, and they said, how about an hour? and I'm like, well, I got to talk to my wife and my kiddos. And actually a really cool moment, because that had been a week. That entire week after that last game, we obviously talked to a lot of different people, met with a lot of different people. And to be honest with you, I think maybe even as late as that Thursday night of that week, we had made a decision, hey, we're going to stay. We're going to stay in Knoxville, and we loved our time. We loved the city. I loved working with Josh. I loved the staff we built. I loved the players we built. We were doing something pretty incredible there that hadn't been done there in a while. And it was really that Friday morning where they called here and said, hey, we want to come up to Knoxville and sit down and talk through this. And I thought I'd have a night, and they said, yeah, an hour. And me and my wife went to the bedroom, and it was a cool moment in the sense of it was really her and the kids that were like, Dad, we got you. Whatever you want to do, we got your back, and we'll roll. And maybe sounds a little sappy, but I wanted my kiddos to be in it, and they're the ones that it's hard for. Yeah. Me and all my buddies are here coaching ball. You know, they got to pick up and move, which they had just done 2 years prior, and they had done it a year prior to that as well. And so it was a matter of taking a middle school girl and taking her away, which I don't know if anybody in here has dealt with middle school girls. It's a different animal. And it was her saying, man, I got you. We got your back. We're going to go do this. And honestly, an emotional moment in a lot of ways. And because you pick up and you go, and your wife is the one that's moving, changing schools, picking up her whole life and moving. Yeah. And I think as the kiddos have gotten older, that's been harder to do. And when they said, man, we got your back, and my wife said, let's do this, could be worse, right? We could be moving not to Tampa, Florida.
Yeah. It makes it easier.
Yeah, but they also just watched us go through a year one at Tennessee, which was as hard as anything I'd ever done. And we had just done this at UCF 4 years prior, had just walked into a year one at Iowa State, which reminds me a lot of this. 4 years prior to that, had just walked into a year one at Illinois. Like, it was like this revolving door of year ones, and year ones destroy you. Yeah. Like, you've coached, you know, like you played, like year ones physically, mentally, emotionally can destroy you. And so I needed them to say, man, like, we got you. And again, maybe a little bit unique, because I don't know if a single time in my career have I ever said, man, I got to be a head coach by this time, or I got to be a coordinator by, like, I learned at a really, really young age, like, be where your feet are, shut your mouth, work. Yeah. And I think that's probably missing in our profession in a lot of ways, but I never felt the pressure to say, man, I got to be a head coach, and I got to do it at a certain place, or I got to do it by this time. Like, I was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee, and man, like, so honored to be there. Like, that's an incredible place, an incredible job with some incredible people. And so I always felt fortunate to be there. I never was in a hurry to leave, and it was going to take something really, really special and unique for me to say, man, like I'm going to uproot my family one more time, to walk into a situation where you knew how much work it was going to be. Yeah. And so I never got a call. I had an hour, and literally I said, if you're coming, plane takes off in an hour, you're on it or you ain't. And so it was a good recruiting tactic. I like it. I actually took some notes on that. But
you got an hour.
We're glad we got it.
That's the part of coaching. We were talking about it on the drive over here. Just like when you're moving around a little bit and you're moving up in your career, having to move your family and change locations. I mean, not just like obviously kids moving schools, but like changing like doctors and like moving like, and your wife is having to do all that. I mean, you've done it now, 5-6 times in your career. How do you guys as a family kind of go through that process?
Yeah, I think when the kids were young, it was easy. And like I said, maybe unique a little bit, I've never chased a job.
Yeah.
Like when I say the only time I've ever left without having to leave, where it was like, listen, it's like either so crazy, drastic, different where you got to go, or getting fired. Like literally the only time I've picked up and made a conscious decision to leave was leaving Iowa State and some of my best friends in the whole entire world to go to UCF. And that was the one time where we sat down as a family, and it took us honestly a month. Really? And we had the luxury of going through a bowl game to where I didn't have to make a decision until afterwards, where we said, you know what, we're gonna do this. It was 4 years. I felt like it was time for a lot of different reasons, and so we consciously left. And then it was after that was 5 years ago, and it was after that leave, go to Tennessee. Didn't have a choice. Glad we did, but didn't have a choice. And we're sitting there, and this was obviously a choice. And so I could tell you it's gotten harder as the kids have gotten older, because again, daughter in middle school, when they were out of school, it didn't matter. And because it was literally me and my wife making a decision, pack, whatever we got to pack. I think even the process of moving, and my wife is a rock star. She's an incredible person that put her career on hold to go do this. I think public perception, because all you do is you see on the internet, this coach here, this coach there, this guy's moving here, but then you peel back the layers there and you're like, no, it's picking up, it's moving schools, and these are young people. Like, again, my daughter's in 7th grade, my son's in 3rd. It's their sports teams, it's their friend groups, and like they're like, even though they're young, they have friends, they got emotions, they got feelings. Like, you start getting into middle school and you got hormones involved. Like, it's like, and I think you have to constantly ask yourself, more so even as a coach, but as a dad and as a husband, like how is this actually affecting my family? And it's one thing if you get let go and you gotta go. It's another when you're saying, man, I'm gonna do this because it's the best thing for me and our family. And I think people perceptionally see, well, there's money, and there's like, yes and no. Like money, as I've grown older, doesn't make you happy. Awards and success on the field doesn't make you happy. What makes you happy is knowing you're actually helping people, helping young people achieve their goals and dreams. What makes me happy is making sure that my family is happy, stable. They're in a really good place. And so I think it's so different when you're living it than, even you sit around in an office, it's like, man, can you believe so-and-so took this job? You're like, man, like, I wonder, like, he's got 4 daughters, and like, what are they saying right now? But when you start really sitting down and thinking about it, there's a lot that goes into it. And you better have a wife or a partner that's like all in, because we always joke, but you see it affects marriages, it affects what your kids grow up like, and they're certainly well-rounded. The positive of it, they become well-rounded. Like, my kids have lived from the Midwest to Florida to Knoxville, Tennessee. Like, so it forces them to come out of their shell. It forces them to learn and grow and make new friends. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but like, my wife, when we talked about this opportunity, she's like, do not jack your daughter up. Like, do not screw your daughter's life up. And like somebody tells you that, and like my daughter is like my whole everything. Like, you're like, whoa. You know, and that's when I say, like, when we actually made a decision, hey, we're just going to stay and do this and keep building, like that was the end all be all for me. Like I said, I don't know if I've ever shared that, but like when my wife looked at me and said, you're going to jack your daughter up, I was like, man, like that's the last thing I ever want to do. And so that's the real part of it.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a crazy life to be a coach's daughter, a coach's wife, but it is cool because of when you have the success, it makes it that much better, right? When you go to a bowl game in year one and you build this place and you know that your family said yes to this opportunity, it's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah, there's some of my coolest moments, and there's some cool pictures up are after the game with my family. Like, and it's always you win a game or you do something really cool. Like for us to get bowl eligible that last game of the year, and the standard is not to get bowl eligible. Yeah. It's not. There's a few of those moments where you look back, and honestly, like it's the moments after the games with my family that stick out in my mind. Like that was a really cool moment to get bowl eligible, and you look around Ray J, and it's like, man, like places going nuts. It's been a while here, and again, you know that's not the standard, but you knew that was kind of the first step to getting where you want to go. Yeah. Certainly year one, and having my wife there, my kiddos, like super, super cool. You know, there's a couple moments in my career that stand out through really all the stops where I'm like, man, like I remember that moment. Like I remember, and it's beating Alabama in Knoxville. There's a picture of that up. That like that moment was really cool. It's going to a bowl game at Iowa State, played in the Liberty Bowl, beat Memphis. Like in the grand scheme of college football, probably not a big deal for us. It was like, man, like it hadn't been done here in a long time. You reflect on when you see your family on the field, like you reflect on every moment. I get emotional sometimes, honestly, after a game when my family comes out. It's like I know what they sacrificed to do this as well, you know. And again, I feel like I get to coach ball with my buddies, and they are living life like real normal life, and so you know what they sacrificed to get to this point. And that's the part that I think I'm so grateful to them and those moments that's what I remember.
I wanted to ask about your career as an assistant, as an offensive coordinator. You said that you didn't ever really plan to be a head coach, or you weren't you weren't chasing the next job, but what were maybe the things that you were doing when you were younger in your career, when you were climbing the ranks, to stand out, to show head coaches like Matt Campbell and like and Josh Heupel and those guys that like you were ready for the next opportunity?
Yeah, I think I learned really young. Again, like I remember Jim Tressel telling me, like, literally, be where your feet are, shut your mouth, go to work, in his very own stoic voice of, and pretty cool. He was actually at practice here the other day, and we were talking about it. Like, just be where your feet are. And young in my career, like guys like Jim Haycock, Luke Fickell, that literally would echo the same thing. Like, shut your mouth, do your job, and it'll pay off. And I don't know that I ever tried to stand out. I don't know that I ever tried to do something that was unique or different other than just literally work really hard. And again, I think it was GAing at Northern Illinois. I learned, like, man, like the more you can do, the less replaceable you are. Yeah. And I remember literally in Northern Illinois as a GA, I was the video coordinator. I was the defensive graduate assistant. And we had no quality control people, no recruiting people. Like, literally, you were everything from an assistant recruiting person to a scouting person to the defensive GA to the assistant DB coach to literally the video coordinator.
Yeah, making $10,000 a year. Yeah.
Man, we weren't making $10,000, brother. We were I think I was making $750 a month, and literally, like, it would snow and you'd go shovel the head coach's driveway because recruits were coming in that night. Then you'd go to the grocery store to pick up the stuff. Like, you just kind of did it all. And I just learned, man, like, the more I can do, the less replaceable I would be. And so I literally would say no to nobody. Like, man, airport run, got it. Like, sweep the floor, got it. And it was whatever it took. We just did. And I think I realized early that I think young coaches now, I don't know if they super realize it, but I realized early that it's the other young guys in every program I've been in that are going to be my peers throughout my career. It was just as important for the young coaches that I was with, whether the other GAs, quality control guys, recruiting guys, that were going to be the ones that as I go through my career, these are the other guys that are going to be essentially I'm going to be working with or helping me get jobs. And so it was just as important how I treated them, how they looked at me. So it wasn't just, man, I got to make sure the head coach knows I'm in here first. Like I got to make sure I'm in here first so that the guys I'm working with can count on me. Yeah. And so that's why I say, I've never tried to stand out. I've never tried to do something different or I just tried to work as hard as I could. And when I ended up leaving Northern Illinois, went to Oklahoma State. Well, our defensive coordinator gets the head coaching job at Toledo. I made myself irreplaceable in the sense that he knew how I worked, he knew how I coached, he knew how I dealt with the players, he knew the detail of what I did. Super involved in recruiting, so he knew even though I'd never been on the road, he knew how I handled recruiting. Well, so then I go to Toledo and I go from being a defensive guy to coaching running backs. Never coached running backs in my life. Well, he trusted that I could figure it out. Then I'm in a room with Matt Campbell, who's our offensive coordinator, Scott Satterfield's our quarterback coach, Jason Candle's our receiver coach. Again, my peers, yes, the head coach had to trust you and know what you were doing, but those are the guys that, man, they knew how I worked. Well, our head coach gets the Illinois job, again, irreplaceable. Go with him. 4 years later, Matt Campbell gets the Iowa State job. Well, we spent 3 years together, saw how I worked. So again, irreplaceable. Brings me to Iowa State. And then, 4 years later, same Josh is looking for an offensive coordinator. His offensive line coach and I GA'd together way back in the day at Oklahoma State. I had run into Josh recruiting on the road in Dallas for years. Well, Josh knew how I recruited in Dallas. Offensive line coach said, man, that guy will work harder than anybody in the country. So you end up becoming the offensive coordinator at UCF. And again, I know that's a long-winded answer, but it's the same thing I tell our coaches. It's the same approach I take as the head coach here now. Shut your mouth, work really hard, and everybody else around you will see what you do, how you do it. And honestly, it's the same thing I tell our players. You can talk about it all you want. Your actions are what.
You got to do it.
You got to go do it. And so actually stop talking about it. Go do it. And again, you can impress me all you want. Your peers better trust you. That's who you're on the field with. And I think very similar to my career in that regard.
Real quick, I want to tell you guys about our new sponsor of the podcast, Mando. Listen, I meet about 10 new people a week as a college football analyst, entrepreneur. When I'm on the road, I always got to be looking and smelling my best. I mean, you guys know how important it is to smell your best. That's why I'm a huge fan of Mando. Mando is powered by mandelic acid, a mild alpha hydroxy acid that blocks the bacteria responsible for causing body odor. I can be on the road for some long days, so I got to block that body odor. Mando's unique formula stops odor at the source so you can stay fresh and confident for as long as humanly possible everywhere, even when I'm in South Florida. And it's not just your armpits. Whether you prefer the convenience of a stick or the smooth application of a cream, Mando has you covered. And since I'm on the go so much, Mando's wipes are the perfect solution for a quick refresh. With Mando, you can say goodbye to the embarrassing body odor and say hello to a new level of freshness and confidence. Control your body odor anywhere with Mando and get $5 off your starter pack. That's over 40% off with promo code NEXTUP at shopmando.com. That's promo code NEXTUP for $5 off your order at shopmando.com. When you were evaluating opportunities, I'm sure after that Tennessee run, right, there were a bunch of schools calling. You had opportunities from schools all over the country to be the head coach. I want to dive into what made this job the one that you wanted to take. And I've talked a lot about on social media about why this is kind of a hotbed, and you have a huge student base, 50,000 some students. You have a recruiting base that's one of the best in the country. I'm sure you looked at all that, but what made this job the one that you ultimately wanted to take?
Yeah, I think a lot of reasons, and I think as I looked, because the year before that Tennessee year, there was opportunities presented again, and I wasn't ready. Like I had never once thought about it. Like I thought, I sit in a room like everybody else and say, man, like if I was him, this is what I would do. But I didn't have a plan. I had not thought about it, had not put anything together. So again, I kind of talked about what I did that summer going into that second year at Tennessee, but I knew the opportunities could come, and I also knew I had an awesome job.
Yeah.
I think sometimes,
that helps.
for sure, where it was like, man, I don't have to do anything. Like, I truly felt like I had the best job in the country being the offensive coordinator at Tennessee. And so when the opportunities came, I knew what I wanted. I wanted to make sure that whatever job it was, I had an opportunity to win. I think sometimes in our profession, you see people walk into jobs and man, like that is going to be tough sledding. And in this day and age, there's a lot of factors that can go into it. Certainly NIL is a huge part of it. Recruiting base, I think, is a ginormous part of it. My time at Tennessee kind of gave me the best of both of those worlds to see, like, man, like to be in the Southeast and recruit against the best teams in the entire country. All right, like where are the players? Where are they going? What are the trends? And then right at the beginning of the NIL era, where I saw how a collective got established. I saw how Josh handled the team and the NIL part of it. And as you saw teams crumble all around us, I thought he did an elite job of managing what was going on. And so for me, I felt like, all right, I've got a really good idea of how I would manage it. I got a really good idea of what we need to go be successful. And so the biggest factors were, are there players regionally to where the access isn't crazy? I spent, like we talked about, I spent time at Iowa State where every single recruiting trip, and Matt has done an incredible job there, but every single recruiting trip, you were getting on a flight. And so you were convincing guys to come, like literally I was coming here to Tampa to convince a kid to go to Ames, Iowa, Champaign, Illinois, coming literally here to convince a kid to go. And so I had looked at this opportunity as, all right, there's players everywhere. There's also like this fond memory. I remember when I graduated school, this was before your time, but I remember watching, I was a GA in Northern Illinois at the time. I remember watching football on a Saturday night and seeing Florida, and like what is that? And where is that? And why are they literally beating everybody's ass? Like, how is that possible? I'd never heard of it. They were 10 years old at the time in terms of the football program. So I'd always been intrigued. And then obviously I coached at UCF to where this was a big rivalry and a big deal. And you kind of, from there, you kind of saw this shift of man, like this place was it now, and it's shifted. And so I looked at it, accessibility to players, the foundation of this NIL space. Is there opportunity, and can we build it the way we need to from an NIL perspective? And then the last and maybe most important thing is, what does the administration really want, and is it aligned? Meaning from the chairman of the board, who we've got a guy that's as supportive as maybe anybody in the country in terms of resources, putting his own resources, influence, decisions being made statewide, to the president who literally every week, Coach, what do you need? Coach, what do you need? This is a president of a top 45 public school in the country that's got 53,000 students texting me, what do you need? And I don't know if she was always ready for the answer, but what do you need to an athletic director that is committed to taking this place to another level, and a fan base and a donor base that's seen what the pinnacle of college football looks like, that is dying to get there. And to be honest with you, when you combine all of that, it's like, what is the sense of urgency? And I don't know if the word is desperation, but in some ways desperation to understanding where college football is going, and understanding that within years there's going to be a you're in or you're not. And so when I looked at it, like the ability to get players, the ability from an NIL standpoint, the alignment of the staff or the alignment of the administration, and then a dying desire to say, man, like we have to be in. Well, when you're desperate, you'll do some things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. And so that's where I felt like, man, like if we can go in there and win, this place has endless possibilities. And as you looked at jobs, especially in that job cycle, you looked around the country, like perceptionally maybe better jobs that we looked at that we said, no, like that doesn't fit. Because at the end of the day, you have to win. And you've got to be able to continue to progress moving forward. And I thought this job in that cycle was the best in the entire country at that, which is why we ended up here.
What was the one thing in the first few months when you started to learn this place that you thought, like, we got to fix this or improve this right away?
Yeah, I think the setting the standard for how everything was going to operate. And I mean from a player welfare standpoint to start, how our guys were eating, how our guys were, where they were living, the amount of money that went into that, like the amount of resources that went into the physical and the mental preparation for the players. Like there was no standard set for what that was going to be. So essentially laying the foundation for that. From the NIL space, understanding that, man, like to retain high-level players, you were going to need a base financially to be able to make sure guys don't even think, man, like I wonder what else is out there. Like, so from a player welfare standpoint, from an NIL standpoint, it had to get established, and it had to get established really, really quickly because you are up against the clock. There's portal windows every 6 months or so. So having that foundation laid, the staff, and not just the 10 full-time coaches, but the support staff and the nutrition staff and the mental health side of it and the sports med and like all of that, man, evaluating, are we where we need to be, equipment, like all of it, to where the players feel taken care of. Doesn't mean they're always getting what they want, but where they feel like their best interest is constantly addressed. So the first couple months was literally that. Part of it I knew was non-negotiables, where it was like, listen, I'm bringing my people that know my standard for how we do things. And part of it was, man, like, does that person add value? Do they care about the young guys as much as we do? And so from a staffing standpoint, and then from a distributing resources, and again, like I said earlier, the commitment that was made here, and a big reason for taking the job, the commitment that was made here was, Coach, whatever you need, we know where we want to go. You do whatever it takes to go win at a high clip. And once we were able to get that done, we were able to actually lay the foundation.
You just mentioned NIL. How do you approach NIL with your own roster, and how you, I was talking to another Power 5 coach about this, and he was talking about how, like, everyone talks about the portal and NIL, but like the really challenging part can be just your own roster, and like them hearing how much maybe a portal player is making when he comes into the school, and that everyone then wants more money, and you got to manage your roster really, really well to make sure you don't lose guys. I mean, it's such a delicate subject now. How do you approach that?
Yeah, ours is really, really simple. Like I think that's become the management of your roster, the management, and when I say the management of your roster, not purely the numbers of the roster, but like the actual players. Again, publicly you talk about management of rosters and like distribution of rosters,
scholarship spots,
and like the crazy thing is, we were talking about kids earlier. Like those are actual like human beings, and they're actual players, and they are integral parts of the program, good or bad. But every single person within the program, staffing certainly, but the players, they can affect your team one way or the other. And so it's understanding that first, they're real human beings that we demand a lot of. And so the management of that, I again, part of why I wanted this job is because there's so much talent, not just in the state of Florida, literally in the 6 counties around us, but between Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Alabama, Louisiana, like you don't have to go very far. Like that's what's super intriguing about being here, is that there is a lot of players.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that leave here and go somewhere else too. And so the intrigue of those guys being able to come back. And so what is the value of being in Tampa, Florida, and what is the value of being close to home? A lot of people would tell you it's huge. So there's some of that matters as well. But from a true NIL standpoint, and now what our jobs have become to the ability to manage it, I said when I got here, and I've stuck to this, that we're going to get the roster as good as we can, as fast as we can, to give us the ability to have a product that we can point to and say, man, like there is proof of concept. Like here's what we do offensively, here's what we do defensively. In year one, we were able to win 7 games. Not the standard, but we had some really good highs. We had some really low lows too. But at least there's a foundation laid. So we had to go get some guys in the portal or junior college and say, man, like we have to be able to functionally create a product that could give you proof of concept so other kids would want to come here.
Yeah.
After that, and I said it early and I've really stuck to this, we want to build it with high school guys.
Yeah.
And again, being here, you have the ability to do that. So this job is really, really intriguing, and I think is one of the best jobs in the country because there's enough high school talent regionally where you don't have to get on a plane most of the time that we can sell a product.
Yeah.
Guys going all over the country, for a lot of guys, this is coming home. I want to be that in the portal more than anything else. So for us, where we've attacked recruiting is, I mean, can we get it in a high school player? Are we in a position at this spot to bring in a freshman and develop him? Because retaining him is always going to be easier than finding somewhere else. If we can't, we got to go to the portal. Well, when we go to the portal, are our relationships strong enough regionally, Florida, Georgia primarily, that high school coach will say, man, like you should check out what those guys are doing at South Florida. Like you should really look like what they've done with guys coming back home has been really phenomenal. Like, so the high school recruiting part of it is not just the actual high school recruiting, but we got to make sure those high school coaches, when that kid calls from wherever, it doesn't matter where, and says, man, like I don't like it here, or I don't like my situation here, or God forbid a parent is sick or a grandparent is sick, or in this day and age, man, I'm having a baby. Like I'd want to be close to family. Well, go check out South Florida. So we've tried more than anything, especially in this last year, to focus on guys wanting to come home more than we have anything else. So I say all that in a long-winded way. I want to recruit high school guys, and then through NIL, make sure the guys that have invested sweat equity into this place are the first guys that you take care of. And so when we've gone out in the portal, and you could read what you want, the truth is nobody actually knows what anybody's making other than the kid himself and maybe his family. Like that's the truth of NIL, is that nobody actually knows. There's nothing disclosed. There's no collectively bargained agreement. This isn't the NFL. So whatever numbers are out there, I would tell you 95% of it ain't true. And so for me, again, what is the value of a young man coming back home? What is the value of a young man coming into a situation where they truly feel like they could come in and start? And so we've not chased the portal like maybe some other people have, because they've had to fit this distinct profile for us. And if you look at who we've recruited, primarily they're guys coming back, or guys that we have recruited at other places that we have genuine relationships with. Because if I've learned anything in the year and a half here, like to just cold call a kid from Harrisburg, PA, you probably, one, ain't getting an answer. Two, you probably are going to have to pay him a bunch of money. And the worst thing I can do as a program is bring a kid here that's going to go into the locker room, tell everybody how much money he's making, generally going to elevate it, and blow up the entire locker room. I would rather not get the kid than blow the locker room up. And I know every coach will tell you that. When I tell you what I spend most of my time on now is guarding against that. And so if a kid's here and he's played and he's putting sweat equity in, I would 9 out of 10 times take care of that guy rather than bring somebody in this program that hasn't done it.
It's so interesting too with just like how fast the portal moves that you really have to have a previous relationship or know someone who knows the kid well. I remember when I was at ASU and the portal just started being a thing, and like we moved ultra fast on a kid because he was a former 4-star, wanted to get him, ended up completely missing. Like he had this crazy medical history, and we didn't talk to him. Just like because you got to move in like 2 days and make a decision. So it's like you almost have to know the kid somehow before you
know the kid. And to be honest with you, and maybe this is trade secret, but I've not taken a single young man in the portal here that I've not talked to the head coach where they're leaving. Yeah. And there's some that phone calls of some coaches that I don't know, but I feel like there is a mutual respect enough to say, man, like, coach, call me back. So inevitably what's happened is you've taken guys from places where you know the head coach, you trust the head coach. Because I've always said this in recruiting, I think where it gets really missed nationally is it's not the good players you bring in, and I truly believe this. I think it's the bad players you don't bring in. Mm-hmm. And the less misses you can have, the better you're going to be. And so recruiting is mitigating risk, right? Like it's no different than in the NFL drafting. Like you're trying to mitigate risk. And so you may take in your mind on film a lesser player that's got less risk over the better player on film with a ton of risk. And now part of risk is NIL included. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to be able to mitigate risk and maximize the young man that you're bringing in. And so like if you've recruited him out of high school, and again, this is why this place is unique, because every school in the country comes to Florida. Certainly comes to Tampa. Like there's a lot of kids elsewhere nationally that are looking to leave. That's why it's so important for us to be able to create relationships with them early so that we can get them. But like you said, if you're making a decision on a young man in 2 days, the risk involved with that is so great. As the head coach, I've got to figure out, is the risk worth the reward? And to be honest with you, 9 out of 10 times you'd say it's not. I'm always curious to ask about like your offer process. I feel like it just varies at so many places around the country. And when you're evaluating high school players, I guess what's that evaluation process like? High school and college scouting in the portal, and are you ultimately deciding who we offer and who we don't offer? Yeah, absolutely. I think having a standard set there is really, really important. Now we've got scouting departments, recruiting departments. Like everything generally starts with the film, right? Like you've got to like what you see on film, and the further you are away from Tampa, Florida, from our campus, the more I feel like, man, if you feel like you got to offer a kid to get in, offer a kid to get in. I don't need to have watched the kid's film, practice, combine film, whatever. Like if you feel like you got to offer to get in, great. The closer you get to this campus, that phone call's coming from me to the high school coach, to the young man. Again, try to be different, because I feel like that's not happening. Try to be different, because I've been recruiting so long that I know the high school coach still matters. Potentially the 7-on-7 coach or the O-line, D-line position trainer still matters. So if we could take the step, and you got coaches where sometimes even as the head coach, you got to be like, dude, slow down. Like being first isn't necessarily the key. Being early is important, but being right ultimately is more important than any of it. And so I want to make the phone call to the high school coach. I want to make the phone call to whoever else is important. I want to make the phone call to the parents, like to slide into kids' DMs and offer them, which happens a lot, is not the way to do it. And if that kid's going to go there to a coach that slid into his DMs, God bless him. But we're still going to try to do it the right way. So the offer process, we have we have a pipeline, and generally it could start anywhere, but starts recruiting office to our young coaches, GAs, quality control at each position, to the position coach, to the offensive or defensive staff watch, to then me. And we try to we try to get through the process as quickly as we can. We have time set aside literally every day from January to December where it's either a unit watch or a position watch in recruiting. We start every year, so we started this in February, start every year with a scouting school where every coach presents essentially their position, everything from measurements.
Oh, that's cool.
From measurements to 40 times to shuttle times to literally hand measurements, arm measurements, to intangible characteristics, to what you must see on film. And then we, as a full staff, will watch comps. So a guy that would be a slam dunk dream get here, to a guy that you would take and be really happy, to a developmental guy. And as we've done this, generally those guys stay the same. Yeah. And then we always watch a comp on our team to say, man, I want this, but longer arms, or I want this, but he's a step slow, I want faster. And so the entire staff gets to see it. We talk about it. It's a lengthy process, but I feel like it forces the position coaches to, one, teach what they actually want, which sometimes is harder than you think it would be. It makes them list the standards that are non-negotiable. So, man, tight end, right? You played, you coached the position. That's my baby too. Yeah. So, man, they got to have 33-inch arm because in order to be able to block in line, in order to be able to pass protect.
If you don't. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, scouting department, other position coaches that are out on the road, young coaches that are learning and helping assist in the process. If the cat don't have a 33-inch arm, he better be running a 4.4 and jump 40 inches, because you've got to if you're going to sacrifice arm length, the rest of it better be freakish. Yeah. And so what it does is it allows you to cut kids off that man, this kid isn't going to make it. Yeah. And so starts with the scouting school, then works through the pipeline on these guys to right now our coaches are out on the road, and every day, so today 1 to 5, we sit, young coaches, myself, our scouting department will sit and we will literally recap yesterday's coaches on the road, guy by guy. Anybody I got to watch the film from yesterday at practice that they watched, or workout, or technology is incredible. Yeah. They film everything. Oh, really? So I can now sit here and help make decisions on, man, for example, a young man in North Carolina that couldn't get down here during spring ball or this winter. Man, the question was, is he big enough? Awesome. Well, here's a picture of him and coach together. Here's a video of him yesterday's practice or track meet or whatever. Yeah. Man, that was the last piece of data we needed. Now I'll make a decision. I'll call the kid, his coach, our coach that was just there yesterday. Our coach has got the immediate feedback. That's our process right now through spring. And then I tell every guy, whether committed or not, but specifically guys that are committed to us, your senior year matters. And so I'm on Fridays during the season, home or away, I'm watching all of our committed guys from the week before, and I'm giving feedback. And we've had several situations.
To the players?
To the position coach. And if it don't look like what you want it to look like, certainly to the players. Yeah. Or if it looks awesome, certainly to the players as well. Yeah. But hey, dude, you haven't played hard in 2 weeks. Yeah. You ain't coming here if that's what it looks like. Yeah. And we've been able to get some kids turned up a little bit, but I think that senior year eval is where a little bit of our niche can be, because there's a lot of guys, and recruiting has sped up so much now. It's truly shifted a whole cycle. Yeah. We're right now, it's spring recruiting, but this is a contact period. Yeah. You're able to sit with the family, sit with the kids. And so it's sped up, it's accelerated so much with summer official visits now. Like we're 2/3 of the way done with our recruiting class.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of kids still left in the fall that, especially here, where, man, like we better be watching senior film. Yeah. And if the guy that's committed to us isn't performing to the standard that he should be, specifically from an effort standpoint, then hey, what else is there out there? Yeah. And we were like a year ago, we were able to close on some guys that, man, I didn't think we could initially. Some guys that we said, man, are out of reach, that ended up not being out of reach, specifically here in Tampa, that I'm super excited about.
Yeah, best group of 5 class in the country, right? Is that the stat I saw last year?
That's according to the internet. We'll find out here in 3 years.
According to 1-3 and 247. Yeah. You should film that scouting school. I'd love to watch that sometime.
Yeah, I can show you my notes from all of it.
Yeah, that's cool. I talk a lot on this podcast about just overcoming adversity, and anytime you reach success in life, right? You have gone through at some point some journey that didn't go the way you wanted. What's a moment in your coaching career where you faced some adversity, faced the toughest time, and how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, there was a point. You're saying from a specifically coaching side?
Yeah, or just life, either one.
Yeah, there was a point when I was at the University of Illinois where we were 2 years in, and it was we had my little man, who's now 9, Bear, went through a time he wasn't doing great, was in the hospital, and to be honest with you, that was the first time in my career, and I told our team this story last year. And I hate talking about myself, just so you know. I love talking about our program, our people. I hate talking about myself. But it was the first time in my career where I sat in a hospital room with my little man in the ICU and my wife, and it was just us 3. And I was like, literally, like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Like, I spend more time worrying about the football and the recruiting, and then I do my family. And I think that was a turning moment in my life because when I was young, I was so focused on, and I was 26, 27, 28 probably, where not that football was more important than my family, but the time I was spending certainly would tell you that it was. And even when I was home, I wasn't present. And I don't know that I was picking my career over my family, but again, the time would certainly tell you that I was. And so, although this is a way of life and this is how we live, and being a coach is a lifestyle and all of that, and you know that, it was the first time in my life that I stopped and literally thought about, man, either I got to change or I got to get out, because at the end of the day, and my wife probably nudged this thought in a lot of ways, but the only thing that really matters at the end of this is my wife, my kids, my family. And is there a way that I can still do what I want to do, which is help young people grow, which is help young people be successful, at the same time not neglecting my family to that point. And I do think I changed very much my approach to, even now to this day, when I make recruiting calls, which is every night, when it's 9 o'clock, which is my kid's bedtime, I leave the phone in the office, and I've got an office at home that I go into to make calls so that I could be present on those calls or FaceTimes or whatever. But when I come out and it's time to tuck my kiddos in, or my little man challenges me to a game of Madden, which I'm in the last month, I think I've whooped his ass every single time. I'm undefeated. Then I'm going to go play Madden. And if we're going to eat dinner, then my phone is going to stay over there. And I don't know that at 27, 28, even 29, I thought I could do that. Because I thought if I missed that call from the recruit, man, I'm not going to get him. It's over. And I think the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that when I call the kid back and I say, man, I was with my kiddos eating dinner, or I was whooping my son in Madden, or I was in the pool with my whatever, I am, if that kid don't get it, keep it moving, man. And, you know, I think like the 2 years at Tennessee, and me and my wife joke about this, I saw my son play flag football twice in 2 years. And I saw probably 5 baseball games in 2 years. And it had nothing to do with Josh not letting us, because he certainly did. But I still felt like, man, like I got to be here for this official visit. I got to be here for this. But I did, when I would get home, I would go and play catch with my little man. Because I missed this baseball game, but gosh darn it, when I get home, I'm going to put this phone down, I'm going to play catch with him. And again, I'm not perfect. I'm not better than anybody else. At being a parent, I'm not. Like, matter of fact, I still think sometimes I suck, but I have tried to be present way more. And same thing, like as a husband, it's, man, I feel like a lot of our date nights are at official visits. You know, like, hey, matter of fact, I just told my wife last night, like, man, like, how about dinner tomorrow night at Fort Beachy? She's like, with who? I'm like, this incredible family from Georgia. And my wife's birthday is December 10th. And so we've done a lot of official visit birthday parties for my wife. But
she's used to it.
She's so used to it. And she's got to be a rock star too. But I think trying to go on a date with my wife every now and again, you know, whether it doesn't end up being ever once a week, but like trying. And to be honest with you, like every year we've gone on vacation, just us two. And like, listen, this week it is just us. And as much as I miss my little people, like, man, like, we need that. We need to just literally get away, just us two, and recharge. And we've done that in July every year to again, just recharge, reconnect. You know, like, we've started going on a walk every night, something you couldn't do in Ames, Iowa. But, you know, when I am home, going on a walk every night, and literally phone at home, 45 minutes, like just us two and these dogs, and we're talking about life. And so I know that was long-winded too, but like, that's where I feel like it was that moment at the hospital that kind of changed my perspective.
That's the part about coaching I don't think the general public realizes, is even when you're off, you're not off because of recruiting. Because even when you're on vacation, probably you maybe can step back a little bit, but you still got to be present with the recruits. I mean, it never stops. You've been around some great players in your career. I was just thinking all the way over here, the quarterbacks like Dylan Gabriel and Hendon Hooker, and I'm missing a bunch of them. But what's something that some of the best, maybe quarterbacks, just best players you've been around, have in common? What's like one trait that comes to mind?
Yeah, you missed Brock Purdy. Brock
Purdy, how did I miss that one?
And our kid here, Byron Brown, would go
freshman,
into that
right?
same mold. You know what? We were talking about this, me and my wife were talking about this the other day. We were talking about Iowa State, and when we got there, flipping that culture, and a young man named David Montgomery, who really had started the flip of that, and just you see what he's doing now in Detroit, and like the special dude that kid was, young man now. Like, it's so fascinating, because all those guys you named were not just really good players, but like culture changers, like culture setters. And culture is such an overused word in our profession. But the ability to not just set a standard, but hold the standard. I think a lot of guys can set a standard and say, man, like, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do this better than anybody else. I'm gonna perfect my craft. I think that's really hard to do in this day and age, to hold yourself accountable to the football side of it when there's all these other things going on. But I think the really special elite players were also really special elite leaders, because they were able to hold other people to that standard. So not just man, I'm gonna work really hard. I'm gonna eat right, sleep right, go to class, treat people the right way. Yes, like, you need that. Can you make other people do that with you? And I think that's what separates the really good players or even elite players in their own right from the true culture changers. And they don't all have infectious personalities. They, like Brock Purdy is not the most exuberant, outgoing human being ever. He just happened to work harder than everybody else, and he demanded that other people work as hard as him. Yeah. And when it wasn't right, he held everybody accountable, including the coaches, to it. Hendon Hooker, the same way. Dylan Gabriel, as a young guy, demanded that it was to his standard. Yeah. Once he was comfortable enough in himself and what he was doing in his process. You know, we talk about Byron Brown is still growing in that regard, coming out of his shell, and it's our job as coaches to empower that. Yeah. But there's been a lot of them, but they've all had the ability to demand others live up to their standard. Yeah. And I think it's really hard. It's a lot on an 18 to 22-year-old, but that's what makes them special. Yeah. That's why they're different.
Last couple of things I got for you, Coach. Appreciate all your time. When you think about the next few years here at South Florida, what are the one or two things that still need to happen to get to where you want this place to be?
I think consistency and being able to grow at a pace that we want to grow at. I said it when I got here, and I still feel strongly this way. Like, we're going to get as good as we can, as fast as we can. Yeah. I think when you look at programs, there's ceilings. Like, whether you admit it or not, there are. I think what makes this place really unique and different, honestly, than a lot of places I've been, most places I've been, is there is no ceiling here. This football program is 26 years old, going into 27. This university is one of the youngest universities in the country. Where the future of this, what we're building here, and it's not just the stadium, it's this football complex that's going to be as good as there is in the entire country.
I'm going to have to come back and see that.
Come on. You open invite. But literally as nice as there is in the entire country. What's happening to this campus, what's happening to the city, like what Tampa looks like right now is way different than when I came down here recruiting 15 years ago. It doesn't look like the same city. The growth of the financial industry, the growth of the real estate market, like, there is no ceiling. And we're 26 years in, college football is moving faster than probably anybody thought. So where does this place go? I think when I took the job, I didn't even realize it, but I think now as I look at it, I'm like, man, I'm so intrigued by where this is going to be in 10 years. And not every program in Group of 5 can say that you're a top 45 public school, 53,000 students. You're an AAU institution now in the number 11 media market in the country, and it's just growing. So, like, what is the ceiling? Well, what's really, really cool is, as this is all being built around us, like, we get to be in the middle of it. And for whatever reason, God has blessed me with coming into programs that ain't real good and getting them to helping be a part of getting them to be relevant in some way, shape, or form. And so I hope that's what happens here is, as we go, man, like, there is no ceiling. Like, there isn't, coming from the previous place I was at, like, the ceiling was the Natty. Yeah. And if you weren't getting it, there's a long line of coaches that got shown the door because they couldn't get there. Like, for us, I truly believe, and I said this, and I said it, and I meant it, and I truly believe that this place can win a national championship. And I don't know how many Group of 5 schools in the country could say that. I truly believe this is one that in a year is going to look way different than it does right now. In 5 years will look like something that nobody has imagined probably. Yeah. And in 10, 20 years, we're going to be in a relevant conversation for every year to have a chance to go compete for a national championship. And I believe that in my gut. I think our players believe that. I know our staff believes that. Now my job is to put us in a position that can actually be reality. And whether that's publicly you can see that or not. I think when you spend time here and you look around and you see where we're going and you see what's being built, I think it's totally real.
Yeah.
And so we'll see.
Yeah. What do you think, this is a big question, so what do you think college football looks like in the next few years with NIL, with revenue sharing, with conference realignment, with all that part of it? What do you think, where do you think this thing's headed?
Yeah, I think if I knew, I'd be super rich and retired. I have no idea. To be honest with you, I don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
I think I'm aware that it's changing, and I'm aware. I think the coaches surviving right now are the ones that can adjust with the change. And I know that wasn't your question, but I think that's who you're seeing thrive at right now in college football are guys that can adjust to the change. Adapt would be the right word, and not like worry about it, and not sit there and on social media and bitch and complain about it, and not sit there and do interviews and bitch and complain about it. Like, I'm like, cool, what do you got? You want revenue sharing? Let me know what's up. We got NIL, let's roll with it. Like these recruiting calendar changes, awesome. Like moving up signing day, awesome. Like, how do we use it to our advantage? That's all I care about. Like, when I tell you, like, I don't worry about it, I literally bring a group of people in that are maybe in some way smarter than I am. Like, how do we use this to our advantage? And I've been able to try to find an advantage in all of it, but I don't know. Obviously, it seems like legally revenue sharing is coming, and probably sooner than we thought. I'm intrigued to see how NIL is going to be intertwined into that, and because that's not going away. I'm curious to see who our governing board is going to be at whatever point. And I think it's such a unique time, and it's such a unique conglomerate, I guess would be the word, because like, who is in charge? And I think that's the fascinating thing.
No one knows.
Right? And so, like if it becomes something different tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked, and we just got to find a way to adjust and navigate and compete. But I don't know. And when I tell you, like, I don't worry about it, because it's such a common question, right? You get asked that all the time, and I really don't. You see bits and pieces and you hear bits and pieces, and it's been very well covered by some incredible journalists. You really don't know because there's such a legal component to it. And I feel like every minute I spend worrying about it, I spend less time worrying about our program here. But it is fascinating, and I do think, like, players getting compensated is the right thing. And I think what's come out of the last 10 years, I remember sitting there listening to the interview with the UConn basketball player about not having food. Gosh, remind me who that was.
I don't remember the name, but I remember the interview.
But not having food, and like, well, what came out of that was the players got every meal for free, as they should. This NIL component was the driving force of players getting compensated. Universities making millions of dollars, coaches making millions of dollars. Well, players should be compensated. What we ask them to do is a lot. And the conversation of, man, and education is part of it, but they should compensate off their name, image, and likeness. And so players getting compensated is the right thing. Now, like, how do we control it in the sense of what's right, what's wrong? But these conversations are level playing fields. There weren't level playing fields before either.
No
so it just kind of is what it is. So I do think where we're going is awesome. And player welfare being at the forefront is awesome. Us having conversations about mental health is awesome. Like, all of these things are really, really good because they center around player welfare and player well-being, as it should, because they're the ones doing the work on the field, and people are paying millions of dollars to watch it. So it's all heading in the right direction. Now, where it ends, I don't know, but it'll be fascinating to watch. And like I said, if you figure it out, let me know. We'll partner up.
We'll have pretty good business. Last thing I got for you. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I think I hit on it earlier. Shut your mouth and go to work. And I think that's where, we don't have a whole lot of slogans or mottos. I've never thought stuff on a wall makes a difference. Not a big quote guy. Other than and you see it around everywhere, just be who you say you are. I've always thought man, like if you're going to talk about something, to just be about it, man. And I think players, man, I want to be an All-American. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, here's the plan. Go execute it. Man, I want to make millions in the NFL. Awesome. Here's the plan.
Yeah.
Go execute it. Man, I want to be a leader on the team. Awesome. Here's the plan. Go execute it. Same thing as coaches. You know, man, all I've ever wanted to do was give more of myself than take from the group. I wanted to add more value than I took from an organization. And at the end of the day, that's it, man. Like, just be who you say you are. And to me, like I said, early on in my career, just shut your mouth and work hard, man. Like I think what's happened in college football has given a lot of people a lot of reasons to talk a lot. What hasn't changed, and I don't think ever will, regardless of any portal, NIL, coaching salaries, group of 5, power 4, like what will never change is you can still outwork people in this thing. And as a player you can, as a coach you can, as an administrator you can outwork people. You could find a solution to a problem by just putting your head down, shutting your mouth, and going to work. You can find solutions to problems by listening to people more than you talk. Yeah. And that's the one thing that'll never change, is you can outwork people. And as long as that's the case, I'm going to keep doing this. Yeah. And so that's the advice. Shut your mouth and go to work, man. Like, that's it. Yeah. And I feel like every successful person I've ever come across has worked. That's been the common theme. Yeah. Smart, not smart, good looking, bad looking,
they work.
Fat, skinny, man, like, it don't matter. You know, black, white, like all of it. Most successful people, all successful people I've come across and have had the opportunity to work with, be around, pick their brain, they've outworked people. And there's no substitute for that. And I truly believe that's the one thing in our profession that still holds true.
Yeah. And you can control it, right? Control the controllable. 100%. Yeah. This is awesome, Coach. I appreciate your time. I went way over my time limit, so but I'm excited to see where you take USF. I have high hopes, and I know you're going to do a great job. So I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Wasn't too hard, right?
No, man, it was awesome. I appreciate it, Adam.